All right, well, welcome in, everybody. My name is Jesse. I'm here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and I know we've got some new faces in the crowd. So, kids, if you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you really couldn't be joining us in a better day because today, not just today, right now, is the last broadcast of our epic Oceans Week celebration. We have done 21 programs with people in 10 countries and I think 4 continents this week. It has been a wild and incredible journey. We've been to Antarctica. We've been to the bottom of the ocean live. We've been all over the place to feature stories from some of the coolest scientists, explorers, and educators across planet Earth. And a big thank you to all you teachers for joining us for this epic moment. Now, today we are going live with one of my all-time favorite groups for the 3rd time in a row. It's so good. We've never done this before. So you're in unprecedented territory right now. And I'm getting the shivers. I hope you guys are too. We are going live to Cape Town, South Africa to SANCCOB. They work to rescue, rehabilitate, and re-release injured seabirds and as an education hub to make sure that kids like you and the public around the world understand the plight some of these birds are facing and what you can do to help protect them. They do such incredible work. They've been operating for decades now. We've been doing broadcasts with them since our very early days as an organization, and it is so exciting to welcome back Alex, educator extraordinaire, to take you on a walkthrough of their incredible work. So Alex, welcome back for the 3rd time in a row, man, and take us away.
Thanks, Jesse. Okay, guys, so as mentioned, my name is Alex and I am a teacher. And I don't work at a school, I work at a hospital. And our hospital is catering for all seabird species. So I'm sure you're thinking only penguins, but no, we take care of gulls, we take care of cormorants, we take care of pelicans, albatross, shearwaters, oyster catchers, you name it. We've handled over 50 different species since our induction, and we're over 55 years in existence right now. So we've saved over 100,000 marine birds. Before we get outside and have a look at some of our patients and what we're doing with them, I am going to first show you a few videos. These are certain aspects of our organization that you would not normally be able to see. Otherwise, either they're in areas that don't have Wi-Fi access, or they're actually very far out, so say for instance a release in the colony. So I'm just going to turn my camera right around, and we're going to start off with the first video. And the first video is going to be very, very cute, our chick rearing. So chick rearing is a very important aspect. It is very different in comparison to normal rehabilitation because we're acting like the parents. So we have to do everything the parent does. We have to be ultra clean while we're handling these animals as well, because we are not the parents that would give them their natural immune system. So the defense force that they need to protect themselves against the sicknesses and the germs and that sort of thing as well. So this is a completely separate facility to our hospital. And I've been working here for 7 years. I've never stepped foot in this facility before. Now we're giving this guy over here some fish formula. It's basically a smoothie. So where we like strawberry smoothies and chocolate smoothies, they get fish smoothies. And in order for us to work with this guy and the rest of them, this lady here had to wake up at about 4:30 in the morning, get here at about 5, then she'd have to weigh each individual. For instance, we're in the middle of a chick season, which is usually from about February going into May, and then our other chick season, which is October, November, December time. If we're in the middle of the chick season, she might have about 100 chicks to take care of. So then she'd have to weigh 100 chicks, prepare 100 meals, prepare the syringe work, so the fluids, any medicine that each one has to get as well. So we have to weigh this guy, and if this guy was 100 grams, we'd have to give him 10 grams of food. So we have to cut up the fish accurately to each individual as well. And then we feed them every 3 hours, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, and then 9 o'clock again. So then the after would go at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So it's a massive job. And we have to do this job because not a lot of people out there are. And we are getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of abandoned chicks and eggs due to climate change issues, due to pollution, due to overfishing being the biggest cause for our seabird decline as well. We are disturbing their nest sites. We're removing their nesting material, or we have moved their nesting material back in the day as well. Things like we used to eat penguin 1,000 penguin eggs, and yeah,
Alex, we're cutting out a little more than we have been before, man. Sorry to jump in for a sec. Let's see if we can get that internet working a little more. Sometimes we got Wi-Fi all the way on the other side of the world. It can be a little...
You guys still with me?
We're with you. Oh, now it's good. Now it's perfect.
Okay, I'm assuming you guys are still with me. So these guys, they need a lot of attention, and we have to give it to them. But it's not a lot of people that can do this kind of work. So at the height of chick season, I've only ever seen 3 or 4 people. And yeah, that's a lot of babies to take care of with just 3 or 4 people. So once they are better, once we've raised them or we've gotten them into good health due to an injury or a weakness, we then release them back into a colony. So a colony is a group of penguins, and they stick together because safety in numbers. So there's no hierarchy. Sorry, my video is pausing. It's not me. There is no hierarchy in a penguin colony. There's no alpha penguin. There's no like king. Oh, what's happening now? Why is it doing this? You might also notice that some of these guys have this pink spot on their bellies. This is just because we actually wanted to monitor them while they were actually released. So after post-release, we wanted to monitor them because this was after an oil spill. Ooh, very, very bad. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the video. It is 5 o'clock on my side. My computer's probably saying, oh, it's the end of the day. It's time to go home right now. I can't agree with it because I still am doing a lesson with some amazing people at the moment. So can you please go? Kind of. But as you can see, they usually stick together. So safety in numbers, very, very, very important. And that is quite important because
oh no. We're going to get Alex back. Actually, classically, between the video and the outside portions when the connection tends to be a little iffy. So when he's outside in a sec, it's going to be perfect. I will note, if you want to check out SANCCOB's work, their social media platform, their website is spectacular. So plenty more to learn when you're there as well. He's back outside. Now it's going perfectly well. So fingers crossed we keep the connection going, folks. Alex, welcome back in, man.
Okay, guys. So the pen I'm overlooking here is our oldest in the hospital. So this section of the hospital is our home pen. It's reserved for all of our permanent residents. So these guys are here because they have some kind of injury that would prevent them from surviving out in the wild. So some of them have lost an eye. Some of them have lost a flipper or a foot. Others are here because they have skew beaks. But the other main reason why they would be here is if they're too tame, if they like people too much. But as you can see, very fancy. They have plants, they have sand, they have rocks. This pool is the only salted pool as well. And these guys, because they're in captivity, they've kind of won the lottery. So a natural lifespan for an African penguin is about 20 to 25 years. Now, this was before human occupation. Nowadays, with all the issues that they're facing, their lifespan is halved. They're only living about 10 to 15 years, guys. That's very, very bad. And in captivity, they could live anything from 30 to 40 years. So the oldest African penguin actually passed away at 44 years of age in a European zoo. So if they are in captivity, there's no stress, there's no pressure, there's nothing chasing them. They get fed every day. And you know what that means, right? It means that these guys over here get very, very bored. Now, if you get very, very bored, it means that you get up to a lot of trouble. So, in the wild, when penguins find their partners, when they find their wives and their husbands, they stick together for life and they share all of their responsibilities equally down the middle. However, in captivity, and that's around the world in captivity, these guys get up to a lot of trouble. So if anybody of you have watched any dramas or soapies like Days of Our Lives or The Bold and the Beautiful, lots and lots of cheating happens here, things like polygamy, so quite crazy stuff. And all of these guys have names because they are permanent residents here. So Hansel and Gretel and Jaeger and Meister. A lot of them have European names because we've been outvoted by our international volunteers back in the day. However, this pen is at full capacity. We don't want any more permanent birds. And the reason for that is just because these guys, we're not a zoo, we're not an aquarium, we are a hospital, we are a rehab center, and it's not something we want to represent. We keep these animals morally because if we did release them, they would never survive out in the wild. And the other reason is these 37 penguins in here and the gulls and our tern, they're all eating lots of food. And they're going to be eating lots of food for the next 30 to 40 years. So that is a lot of resources to keep these guys alive, guys, that we could use to save tens of thousands of other patients that we could get over the years as well. I'm now going to go down to our main aviaries and pens. And most of this hospital has been newly constructed. So finished in 2018. So we've been on this site for 38 years. But because we've been here for 38 years, our facilities were literally falling apart on us, literally by the seam. So we had to demolish 75% of our hospital and rebuild it. And that was in 2017, pushing into 2018. Very challenging year for us in 2017. We were under construction, so there was a lot of vibration and noise, which had an impact on the stress levels of our patients while we were taking care of them. We were also got hit by AI, so avian influenza, which is a particular disease. It's very, very lethal for lots and lots of birds. And then we also had a drought. So here in South Africa, we are a semi-arid country. We had a massive drought, and we were heading towards day zero, which means that we would have ran out of water in our taps, and we'd all have to line up to get provisional water from certain points. And that was problematic because these pools, which we have 3 of them, we had to use municipality water to actually refill them. So we have to use water to save our animals and rehab them, guys. If we can't make them swim, we can't save their lives. We use these pools for 7 main reasons. This is a gym for them, so it's exercise. It's a bath for them. It encourages them to look after their feathers and preen themselves. It is also a social activity for them to de-stress and relax and just say hi to their friends. It's used to cool them down, very important during spring and summer, especially here in South Africa. It is physio for certain conditions, and it's also used to test the waterproofing of their feathers. I think I've mentioned 6. There is a 7th one. I'm trying to remember. I'll get back to that. But very, very important reasons. The waterproofing is quite important because for penguins, they can't fly. And they spend anything from about 60 to about 80% of their life in the ocean. So they're mostly swimming. And if you guys had to do that, it would mean that you would need 100% waterproof feathers in order to survive. So if you guys were missing, if these guys were missing even just half of a millimeter of waterproof feathers, they would not normally survive out in the ocean. They would get hypothermia. So these guys, one of the final tests we do on them before we release them is to test the waterproofing of their feathers. We're also checking their blood work. We're checking their weight as well. And then we're doing releases. We release these guys every single week if the weather allows us to. You'll notice that these guys have tags on them. So the red tags indicate that these are our healthiest birds. So they get to swim in the water for an hour long. And because it is now 5 o'clock or after 5 o'clock, we've actually left the gate open for them. So they can come and swim anytime during the night while they're here. On this side over here, we have some more penguins. Now you'll notice most of our penguins do not have the traditional black and white like they're used to seeing on penguins. Most of these guys, if not all of them, are this bluish gray color. And this color is indicating their age. So if they are black and white, they're adults. They're 2 years and over. If they are dark brown, they're juveniles, 1 year onto their 2nd year of life. If they are bluish gray like these guys, they are blues. 3 months going on to their first year. So all of these guys are 3 months old. They're only 3 months old and they're already adult sized, guys. So that's why they have to be fed every 3 hours in the chick rearing unit. If your learners grew as fast as a penguin, they would be born today in the morning at 8. On Sunday noon, they'll be adult sized. And then Tuesday in the evening, they will be kicked out of the house and they'll have to look for their own place. So 5 days of being a kid. Very, very quick. As mentioned before, it's not just penguins. We take care of all seabirds. So I'm going to go inside and show you some of our gannets. These gannets in our pen 8 are actually our younger chicks. So they're still a tad fluffy. They still have a tad of fluffy feathers, but they're getting their more speckled feathers right now. So these guys over here, very large birds, very sharp beaks. So when we're handling them, we have to wear proper gear, so protective gear, because these guys tend to go for the face when we are handling them. And we've had a lot of volunteers that have been injured here. In fact, if you do come and volunteer here, you will be injured. So we do some amazing work, we do some important work, but one of the main requirements for us to release them back into the wild is to ensure they're as wild as possible. So we encourage the biting and the flipper slapping. We encourage all of that because it means that they don't like us. We don't want them to like us, even though we love them. But it is very, very important because if they're too used to people, they're going to follow people around expecting to be fed, and they're not going to survive. Now, I'm going to go where the babies are now, guys, which means that I have to be very, very quiet. So I'm just going to quickly show you what the babies look like, and then I'm going to go backwards and I'll talk a little bit more about them. Okay, guys, so our babies are being fed right now, and if you saw the size of that fish, each one of our penguins usually has 6 to 10 of those a day. The fish is A-grade sardines, so about 15 centimeters, so half of a ruler, and they swallow that all whole. They have a very interesting adaptation. Their tongues are highly spiked, so the spikes hook onto the fish and they pull it down into the stomach. They don't want to chew into the fish, because then the bones would come out and it would cause issues for them swallowing. We also have some other babies in here, so I have to be quiet again. So guys, what that lady is just doing is she has to check the tag on the flipper to see who's who, because he needs to get a certain amount of fish, he needs to get a certain amount of fluids, he needs to get certain medications. So every penguin and bird in here has a name. It's a number system usually, and that's quite important because we only have one vet. He can't look at all of our animals every single day, so we have to keep general tracks of their rehabilitation while they're here. This is our outside ICU. So these guys are injured or weak in some way, but they're in better condition than our inside ICU individuals. So this guy over here, he's got a flipper injury. The bird at the back has a beak injury. So I think we're just trying to realign his beak. So that could be caused by blunt force trauma or something of that nature. So problematic. And then we have our aviaries. So this is specifically for our smaller flight birds. So these guys can fly from standing. So mostly seagulls in here, but we'll have cormorants, we'll have terns. Um, some of the smaller species we get are birds called plovers. They're very, very tiny, actually, about the size of an egg, actually. So we get some very interesting species here, but all seabirds. Unfortunately, we can't take care of all birds because we have to be very, very, very careful about diseases coming into the hospital. If we bring in a pigeon that has like bird pox or avian malaria or avian influenza, we could potentially be risking all the animals that are even more endangered. So if you guys don't know, our African penguins, along with a lot of the species we are handling, are incredibly endangered. Our African penguins are down to 1% remaining of the population. So when I started working here 7 years ago, it was 2%. So within the next 10 years, it's more than likely they will be functionally extinct. And that's why we exist. It's why we do the work that we do. We get about 2,000 to 2,500 patients every year, and we have an 80 to 85% success rate in regards to our African penguin success rate in rehabilitation and release as well. Okay, guys, I've been speaking a lot. If you guys can please give me questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the tour, Alex, and for the gannets too. I know everyone's a real penguin fan. I'm a huge gannet fan. It's one of my favorite birds in the world, so getting a chance to see them is pretty special. Ms. Lavery, Ms. Matterson's class, YouTubers, please feel free to chime in the chat. Our live classes, I will come to you in just a second. We got a question online, which is one I know you've fielded the last couple times as well, but how many birds total are at the site right now? How many are you caring for at this minute?
So we're in a bit of a crisis. We received about 150 abandoned chicks. This is just due to the bad weather conditions that we're having at the moment. So we've actually noted a lot of chicks are becoming hypothermic or they're actually drowning in the colony. So we're removing them from the nesting sites through our ranges. So we have an extra 150 that we wouldn't normally be in. So at the moment we have about 400 patients on site, and we're going through about 25 boxes of fish. Each box is about 5 kilograms. So a lot of food being used and a lot of resources being used.
Well, and 400, I mean, 150 to add to make 400 total is a huge proportion of the amount of birds you have. So I wish you the very best, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to see those and highlighting the fact that it's important to keep quiet around birds in that stressful situation. So thank you, Alex. Miss Lavery's class, if you want to unmute your mic, share a question on behalf of your kids, you are good to go. Hey.
Awesome. Thank you. So some of my students were wondering, in the wild, what are some of the predators that the penguins might have, and how do they defend themselves?
Okay, so that is a great question. A lot of people, when they think of the predators for penguins, they automatically think of the aquatic predators like the sharks, certain types of whales like orcas, the seals as well. They do have terrestrial-based predators as well, things like snakes, rats, rodents, large felines like caracal that we have here, but also all the introduced predators that we've actually taken to new environments. So cats, dogs, but they're even more problematic because the cats and dogs are being fed at home, so they're just doing more frequent hunting for fun. So there's more frequent deaths from our introduced predator species than the actual natural species that they experience. And that's why for seabirds, they form their colonies on islands, safety, because most islands don't have a lot of predators on them. But unfortunately, we tend to like islands as well, so we tend to bring those predators towards them, and that's another reason for their rapid decline as well.
Great question. Oh, there we go. Great question, Ms. Lavery. Thank you for that. Ms. Matterson's class, we're going to head to you guys. If you want to unmute your mic, you got it carried right in front of the camera. You're good to go. Hey.
All right.
Sorry. It's your second device. The second device you have, if you mute that, turn off the audio, then you'll be good to go.
Better. Is that a little bit better?
Much
Thumbs
better.
up?
Sorry.
Awesome. All right. Ryan has a question for us.
So can they go in cold? So can they go in warm water too, or do they just go in cold?
Okay, that is an excellent question. So, with our current circumstances here in South Africa, we actually have very depleted fish stocks along our west coast. So we're actually noticing that most of the penguins are moving up the east coast. So that's a very unusual event because for our species in particular, they're not a migratory species. So they normally shouldn't be moving around. They are just trying to follow the fish, but they're now in the Indian Ocean, which would mean that they're actually the one penguin species that is found in warm waters. Most other species, if not all of them, should be in cold waters. And that's just quite important because penguins are very good at retaining their heat, but very bad at releasing heat as well. They actually have a number of behavioral and physiological methods to do so, but it is quite tricky for them. So generally, they want to go into colder oceans, but yeah, we're just seeing them in warmer oceans. But most penguin species, of the 18 species in the world, most are found in warmer climates. So only 4 of the 18 live in Antarctica. The other 14 are in more warmer places like South America, Australia, New Zealand. There's even a penguin species that lives near the equator. So they've evolved and adapted to survive in those kind of environments. Thank you. That's a very good question.
Thank you. Yeah. We're going to take 4 more questions. So live classes, I'm coming to you one more time each. I'm going to take 2 quick ones from YouTube first. Radia wants to know, how fast do penguins grow from Miss Lada's class?
Okay, so guys, I'm going to actually turn my camera around just to give you a bit of an estimate. So the general size of when they're born is from your chin to just above your nose, so about yay big. They will then reach adult size in a month and a half, which is about 40 to 45 centimeters. And then they're kicked out of the house at 3 months of age. So they are very fast growers because their natural lifespan is about 20 to 25 years. So yeah, it's a very fast growth rate. There is a lot of pressure on the parents to keep hunting for them and feeding for them. So being able to grow fast is a benefit as well.
We're one of the species in the world that stays the longest with our parents. In general, there's actually very little that comes close to us. Big whales, maybe, but most things are pretty quick out of the nest or out of the brood, so to speak. And I'm really glad when we get that question. Thanks, Radia. Andy wants to know, why did you choose to help penguins? What's the deal, Alex?
Okay, so I'm not here. I'm not just here for the penguins. I'm here because of conservation. So I want to help the planet. I think that working in conservation is probably one of the most profound things anybody can do in this day and age because we're trying to save the planet, and we're trying to save the planet against our own species. So anytime anybody ever asks me what can we do to help, there is so much that you can. If you guys are not using plastic straws, if you guys are recycling, if you guys are helping the world in any way, if you're planting trees, if you're reducing what you're buying, if you are reusing what you currently have. So some of the ways that I actually protect the environment is I just make sure I take care of everything that I do own, and I make sure that I am making sure that it doesn't break down. So the vehicle I've been using for the last 13 years, it's the same vehicle. Don't buy clothes all the time. So things like that. We live in a very a society where you're buying all the time, and that really should slow down or stop entirely, because that's how you can save the world, by not purchasing as much items as what we are currently doing.
I love that message. Thank you so much. And I completely agree that there's very little that you can do on this planet that's more profound than helping save life on Earth. So kudos to you and the work of the entire team at SANCCOB. It's been really special getting to feature all these stories.
There's 2 more questions, right?
2 more questions. And then, do you have time for 2 more questions?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. We'll head to Miss Lavery first. Peel, come on in, unmute your mic. You're good to go. Hey.
Thanks again. So we have another question about how long can the penguins swim underwater without coming up to take a breath?
Okay. So for African penguins, they can hold their breath for 2 to 3 minutes. Generally, our African penguins will stay within the first 40 meters of the water. But if they really can't find any food, They can dive to a lot deeper depths, so 120 meters maximum for African penguins. Different species have different dive depths and hold breaths as well. So emperor penguins, they can hold their breath for about 20 minutes and they can go to 500 meters. Record holder for the emperor penguin was 575 meters and he held his breath for 27.5 minutes.
Wow.
So that's a massive amount of pressure. They don't suffer from the bends or anything of that nature. So they're very, very evolved to survive in their marine environment.
Very cool. That's deeper than scuba divers can ever go. That's way more than humans can hold their breath. Very, very cool. Thanks, Ms. Lowry. Miss Mattressing, we're going to wrap up with one question from you guys. Thank you all so much to our audience today, both in this broadcast and our previous two as well. Alex, this has been a really, really fun day. Come on in with one final question, guys. Hey.
All right, we have a question from Aiden.
Aiden?
Penguins sleep.
How do penguins sleep, or how long do they sleep? Yeah.
That's another great question. So guys, in terms of personality, penguins are the exact same as cats. They are very curious, they're very inquisitive, they're very stubborn, they're very independent, they go where they want to. You can't really train them to do anything, and they are amazing escape artists as well. So that's the reason why, for instance, all of our fencing over here has this groove in it, because if it's normal fencing, they climb over it. We also have a double door system to get into all of our pens, because if it's just one door, they all escape out of it. But just like cats as well, they do a lot of sleeping. And that's especially important when they are on land. They're trying to be as lazy as possible on land, because when they're out in the ocean, they're using a lot of energy as well. So when you see penguins out in the colonies, they're either napping standing up or they're just lying down. For our African penguins, they would normally have been found underground when there was guano layers. So when there was guano layers back in the day, they used to use it as a nesting material. Unfortunately, very valuable to us because we used to use it for fertilizer in our farming and gunpowder creation as well. So we mined out all the guano, but there used to be anything from 9 to 12 meters of guano, so 3 to 4 stories of bird poo, and they would burrow into that, which is a lot softer compared to topsoil, but a lot harder compared to sand. It's also very sterile, so when it dries, it's very acidic, so it's actually very, very clean. And very good water absorbers, so if it's raining, they necessarily get waterlogged. Also, because they're underground, it protects them against a lot of the elements, so they're not standing in the rain and the sun. The same for their eggs and the chicks. Because they're underground, they wouldn't be attacked by a lot of predators. And it's also a bit of a microclimate, which increases their incubation of their chicks and their eggs. But that all went away once we mined it all out, sadly. So yeah, it's a lot, but these guys, they do it as much as they can.
Fantastic. Alex, I know we could talk all day about penguins and the other amazing work you do. I want to highlight your website, social media pages for all our students to keep learning going when you're done. It's been such a fun day. I know you have to run in a minute, but what an absolute pleasure, not just today, over the last 2 years of getting to hang out with you, and just really appreciate joining us here for Oceans Week, man.
It's always been a pleasure. Thank you very, very much. And I will see you in the future. If I happen to have a device somewhere and I'm in a colony somewhere, I will log in.
I can't wait. And as you know, what we do to wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in Miss Mattressing's class. If you guys want to unmute your mic and join me in saying a big thank you and farewell, you are now in the program. Miss Lavery's class at home too. Thank you, everyone. That was